My biggest one used to be finances. I was always covered and taken care of, but the thing is when you're manifesting, if you think about those energetic levels, and you're going to be sat there as a friend and go, he has grown, because what he talks about now is kind of, it's...
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for joining me today. I am so blessed and so proud today to introduce my dearest friend, Glenn Marsden. We've known each other for years. He is the founder of the Imperfectly Perfect campaign and global movement leading the way in changing the face of mental health and the culture around it. You have interviewed literally everybody from actors from Australia, US, across the world, supermodels, speakers, professional athletes, reality TV stars, and my two favorites, Wim Hof and Dr. Joe Dispenza, which is an incredible achievement. Not only that, but you have been on some of the biggest radio stations like Triple M, Hit 105.9, news stations, from Australia and the US, numerous magazines. I mean, we can go on forever here. And can you believe it that we met at the gym? I don't even know how many years ago. At
I'm going to say
Bondi.
I'm going to say something funny. It's a good friend of mine. He's a big name in the US, but the way that you interviewed me then, and then you said, we met at the gym, I said the exact same thing to him, and he said, you could have said something so profound, but you just said, at the gym.
Well, that might just be the most profound thing I'll say all day.
Exactly.
So I wanted to interview you, Glenn, because, number one, of course, I love you and I think you're amazing. And we've been good friends for a very long time, but also because I'm just so proud of you. Like, you have created this campaign from an idea, from nothing, and it's just blown up. And I know how hard you work and I know how much you put into this. And I just wanted people to basically understand that, yes, it comes to work and all this sort of stuff, but also like your spiritual practices, how they've grown over the time and how they link to you building this, So like, what are some of the things that you started doing? Like, I know you do vision boards and all that sort of stuff. So just, tell me a little bit about it and like, where did you start? Basically, how did the basic spirituality come into the mixture of all of this?
Yeah, well, it's kind of funny. I'm not religious. I've never been religious. I wasn't brought up around church because of environments. My family weren't. I was never spiritual. My family were never spiritual. So I would say the evolution of my spirituality actually came from Imperfectly Perfect campaign. I'd heard about things, and you being a good friend of mine, you used to try and tap me on the shoulder telling me things, and I was like, oh, okay, what's she talking about with
She's
this
just crazy.
stuff? And yeah, but the Imperfectly Perfect campaign, the big premise about it is uncovering the mask. And essentially, spirituality really leads into surrendering and stepping forward into truth. And everything from societal expectations and environmental pressures and everything that we've placed on top of ourselves, if we're able to actually remove all that stuff, and which is what I've learned along my journey, you can truly start tapping into something that you're like, oh my God, there's more to this world than meets the eye. Because we've been indoctrinated into schools, and then life as we know it, getting jobs, and everything is just this pressure and this bubble on top of us that we don't get time to just pull back and be at one and listen to that inner voice. And you've known me for a long time, and you've sort of seen my growth in spirituality. And these days I kind of get downloads. And
yeah, I mean, when I met you, you never even talked about it, and now it's like we talk about it all the time, so it's really incredible that you've done this huge shift. And you're talking about downloads, so what is that for you? Like,
it's funny when I say, so anyone that's listening that might be thinking, I'm dipping my toes in it, I don't know if it's real, I'm going into my logic. Again, you've been such a great supporter of me as a friend, and when I've had these questions, the stuff that you've told me, I've got other friends spiritual, and I always talk about, when people talk about the five people that you want in your life, and then on the external, people talk about people with wealth or high IQs. Yeah, that's great, but I'd rather have the people who are spiritual, because when you're struggling, they're there to encourage you because they've been through a lot of the times what you've been through, turning their pain to a purpose. And when you're actually succeeding, they're clapping the loudest because from a spiritual place, or God, as I say these days, it's like he's elevating you, or you're being elevated because you've worked on yourself internally. And that in itself, downloads for me is getting almost messages that come to the forefront of your mind. And it started happening to me. And because I go into my logic a lot of the time, I'd be questioning it. I'd be like, what's this? And then I was told to surrender to it. And I started essentially telling people, I was like, does this mean anything to you? And then they confirm it. And I was like, bloody hell. I was like, isn't it? It's like this mystical power. But then I'd still go into my logic again, go,
right. No, this is not true. Yeah.
But mine started with, and I impressed a lot of people, like, I can look at you now and it will really frustrate me and annoy me because instead of looking at your face, all I can see is an aura around you. So I started off with seeing colors. And everyone's like, how are you seeing colors? And I'm like, I don't bloody know. Like, I keep it real. I'm like, I don't bloody know. So it started with aura, seeing colors. And then I kept on Googling, going, what does this mean? And then going, does this mean anything to you? Or is it something to you? And they'd say, yeah. Then there was words. And then recently I started tapping into people's emotions. And I couldn't work out why. So I was getting heaviness on my chest when I was talking to somebody. And then I just brought it up. And I was like, are you going through something where you feel like you're almost drowning, but your head's just keeping above the water? And I'm like this. And she was like, yeah. And I was like, I think I'm feeling your emotions because it's so tight across here. And that was annoying, to say the least. It was amazing, but annoying. You're just like, and then the other day, I was talking to somebody and I was mentoring someone about the relationship. And then I didn't really know them. And then I said, can I just stop you? All I'm seeing at the moment is this little girl with the biggest brown eyes and biggest smile on her face. But the thing that's featuring about her is these pixie tails. She's obsessed with pixie tails. And the woman actually sent me a picture whilst we were doing it. And it was a little girl. I was like, what? I was like, now I'm seeing this is so this stuff, this what you've always spoken about and poured into me. You can literally go from almost a non-believer. I'm open. I've always been open about everything, but it just wasn't in my peripheral. I didn't know anything about it. And the more I've worked on myself and released things and surrendered to it, the work has got easier.
Would you say also like the Imperfectly Perfect kind of like led you maybe more towards the spiritual path?
I believe it's been brought to me. So when I started this and the name started getting bigger and it opened doors, and I think because where we met, and I'll refer it to the gym, I've never had judgment on people because I don't see titles or professions, and that comes from the gym. Everyone's there for a commonality of community or working out. And I suppose as I walk forward, and I don't care who I'm sat in front of and speaking to them, everyone's human. So I don't put judgment, or I don't place judgment. And I was told along my journey that it's almost like I'm being molded. So I haven't got views on religion. I haven't got views on spirituality. So it's almost like this blank canvas, so to speak, of, all right. And then spiritual people started coming to me, then people of God, then people of this. And I was like, oh, I'll listen to that. And don't get me wrong, this is not easy because I always say, physically, mentally, emotionally is hard. Spiritual can be even harder. That's a path in itself because you do question yourself. You're always going into your logic because it's something that you are not used to, unless from an early age, like yourself, you get attuned to it and it grows with you and it gets stronger. But for me as a 30-year-old guy, 30, look at me taking my age down, 38.
You look 30, darling, don't worry.
Thank you, mate. It's a lot of lights around here. But yeah, I think as a 38-year-old man, of course, you've come a long way. You've got to work through a lot of your crap and trauma and everything to then suddenly get to a space and go, is this real? And get away from your ego.
Yeah, that's something that I've been talking a lot about on my lives is the way of manifestation. There's a lot of healing involved. And so in order to be able to manifest something, so there's some healing. So in your case right now, it seems like letting go of those judgments or those preconceived ideas that, or doubting yourself or whatever, that's a healing level, in a way, saying, let me just try it. Let me be open to it, that openness. But what do you practice that has like manifested? So like, do you do vision boards? Do you meditate? What is it that you do on a daily basis that keeps you in tuned and like, channeled towards the Imperfectly Perfect campaign? Because it's grown so much since I met you. I think I even like remember you starting to talk about it, and then all of a sudden it's become this huge thing. And I'm going to put some snippets of you on TV and stuff like that. Like, it's just incredible what you've been doing.
Thank you. And again, likewise to you. You came on, you got behind me. You didn't know much about it at the beginning, and you was like, Glenn, whatever you're doing, I'm on board. So that just shows you, when you have those people, those supportive people cheer you on, it doesn't have to be anywhere at the beginning. But I suppose for me, in the morning, I will wake up early. And these days, as I say, the more spiritual I've become, I actually just do my prayers. I set my day with prayers and making sure me and my family are good and those around me. I've got a funny thing about vision boards and everything. And the reason why is I used to do them, but you truly have to be consistent, and you have to viscerally believe and put yourself into those positions. And like you were talking about manifestation, it is healing. My biggest one used to be finances. I was always covered and taken care of. But the thing is when you're manifesting, if you think about those energetic levels, and you're going to be sat there as a friend and go, he has grown, because what he talks about now is kind of it's step and what you learn along the way. And that's the process. And I've realized that the energetic levels, it can come from a high vibrational frequency when you set your intention for a manifestation, and we're like, oh, this is amazing, this is great, I feel. And then if you set a date and it gets towards that date and it's not happening, you drop into this low vibrational, and then it gets to the date and doesn't come. So what do? You go back into your ego. Oh, I knew it wouldn't work, and you give up. But I've learned that if you get through that stage, you literally keep pouring in. Whether it's not coming to fruition, then I take it as a test and I go, okay, how much faith do you actually have that this is going to come to fruition? And pour some faith into you and go, it might not be today, but you know what? I've got the heavy favor of God on my life, or whatever you want to say as a manifestation. And then when it comes, obviously, you're high vibrational frequency again. So it's just finding this middle ground and trying to find happiness, I suppose. And happiness is hard to find when you've got a lot of things to deal with and go. But I start looking at this vibrational frequency. And like you say, with one of the biggest manifestations, like I'll say, where it came to fruition, there was a lady I happened to meet, and she was so interested in IPC, and she started going, so tell me about it. Where's it ending up? What do you want to do? So I told her, and I was like, okay, so this is the premise, and I want it to here, and I want it here. I want to help these people to get that, and I want to help these so I can do that. And she was like, Glenn, she was spiritual as well. And she said, Glenn, I want to stop you. She says, what do you want?
Right.
I was like, what do you mean? She says, because you want to do this for them. You want to do this for them. But what does Glenn want? And I said, well, I'm part of the IPC, whatever that comes. She was like, no, you're not. She was like, you're doing it, but what is in your heart's desires? She said, think about it. She said, because God or source, whatever you want to say, wouldn't be opening doors unless he thought you deserved it and you were being elevated. Why do you think all these people are coming? And I was like, shit, excuse my language.
No, I do keep it real. You know me. Like, I'm like, go for it.
I was just like, that's so powerful in itself. Yeah. Like, these doors would not be opening to you if you didn't deserve it. But there's something in you that you must think you don't deserve it.
Yeah, that's really powerful. I think people also, like, we are being programmed. I mean, service is wonderful, but I believe ultimately that real service is ultimately serving your highest self, your highest purpose, right? Which is serving everybody else. You're just a reflection of what's happening outside. So when you truly understand what that is, it's not about being selfish. It's not about, and it can, I mean, it is in a sense, but it's not a bad selfish. It's a very good selfish where everybody benefits. It's like your cup being so full that it's overflowing and it's like pouring onto others.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah, that's amazing though. That like, and I've noticed that you've been attracting more and more people who, because we talk obviously quite often, and not as often as I'd like, but you know, that you've been talking to people basically who have been telling you such incredible information, and it's almost like you just putting that energy out there of seeking that has come back to you. You
Yeah.
know? So
I think if you evolve, yeah, go on, sorry.
No, please finish.
I just think the more you relax into it, and it's something you always taught us, it was like I was always seeking answers. And I think sometimes when we're going through a hard time, we gravitate to things to seek answers all the time. And that's unfortunately where there are sheep in wolf's clothing that can manipulate us, because we just want the answers. We want a bit of encouragement. But it's even the same as like what I've noticed. And if I say I've got a personal relationship with God now, or source or universe, whatever anybody believes in, I'm not here to impart my beliefs, but what you believe in. But when we are going through that hard time, what do we tend to do? We pray, or we come from a place of desperation, like, oh, if it only, but yet we forget about coming from a place of gratitude for what we've actually got.
Yeah.
Which then we can actually get that gravitational pull. And after that lady said that to me, I thought about that. What do I want? And I was like, you know what? Anyone that's not living in Sydney, Australia knows how expensive it is. I was like, you know what? I've always wanted to move to the US, which I know will come. That's part of my manifestation. But I was like, at the moment, you know what? We don't know what's happening in the world. I want a house. I want about 4 or 5 bedroom. I want it in the same area that we live in. I want nice furnishings. I want this, and I want a bath. That might sound weird to people, but as an English guy in Australia,
I love baths too.
baths.
Yeah.
It's a shower. And this is how fast it worked. That weekend, so this was about Tuesday, that weekend, me and my wife and my kids, we walked around the area and we drove to go swimming with the kids. We drove back, and there's a little area called Lilyfield, like, you know, next to Balmain where we live. There was 2 new brand new houses that had just been finished built. And we walked in and we was like, you know what, we're going to have a look. Walked in. It literally was 4 bedrooms with a studio on the front. It had white furnishings that I wanted. It had my bath. It had a garden for the kids. It had this, this, and this. And I was like, this is ours. And don't ask me how I knew. And then Kat turned around to me, and this is where I talk about finances and everything. And this is the spiritual part. And she was like, yeah, but how are we going to get it? Because you've been on this entrepreneurship journey, so you've been working casually. When you're applying for somewhere, you normally need to show each month how much you're attaining and how much you're making. And yours is like this.
Right.
But think of this, for the last 5 months, we're bringing a new book out for the IPC, which is a collaborative book with authors. So there was nearly 5.5 a figure sum each month consistently, nearly like 10,000 and stuff like this. We put it in and we heard the day later, and we moved in 2 weeks after. That is crazy as anything. So then I was just like, wow, this stuff really, truly works. But again, you have to keep consistent, because your mind, that ego, is desperately trying to pull you back and go, you know what, you just got lucky. No.
That's amazing. And I'm first of all, I'm so happy for you guys. That sounds incredible. But yeah, it comes down to, like, I guess, vibration, as you said. Like right now, I'm going through something that's kind of coming up. That's old stuff. I don't know. It was like Lionsgate or something recently. Energetically, there was some sort of energy thing, and I'm quite sensitive to that stuff. And I thought it would be like, you know, you always expect a certain thing, but sometimes healing is just really ugly, and it brings up old stuff and you can look at it 2 ways, right? You can look at it as, oh, I'm a victim to this, or, hey, this is great. The universe is showing me right now what needs to be healed in order for me to manifest the very thing that I need to manifest. But then the opportunities show up, like for you, and you could have gone back. You could have gone into fear. You could have gone, oh, well, yeah, how are we going to get this place? I don't know, you know, but you were just like, this is mine. This is how it's going to happen. And of course, there's a level of responsibility involved, because I know a lot of spiritual people is like, oh my God, I'm just going to buy the house, and then they can't pay it, you know, because there's old programming there too. But Yeah, that's crazy. Um, so the other thing I wanted to talk to you about as well is like, how do you deal with like, okay, so Australia, as much as I love Australia, there's this thing called tall poppy syndrome, which we're all very well aware of. And it's an energy, because wherever you go, there's energy, there's a collective energy. I found that a lot as an actor over there. That basically like people would put you down or think that you were arrogant for like trying to, you know, step outside of what is comfortable and step outside of what is like normal. And it's like, oh, so you think you're all that because you want to be an actor, because you want to start a campaign and you want to be a, you know. And so how did you, because I remember it was a struggle for you, and you're like, you say you were also attracting like wolves in, what is it, wolves in sheep clothing? I don't know that term, but I've heard of it. So how did you deal with that? And like, what did you do to sort of like, I'm sure it affected you, but how did you start like moving out of it?
Yeah, I think if I can look back now, and there were times, and again, you were there for me at those times as well, and I was attracting those people because it was getting big really fast. And with someone that is empathetic, who is a little bit naive with people, you want to give them chance, and you don't honestly think that people would do that a lot of times. I suppose you could say when I was laying in bed with entertainment, it is an industry that I'd never been around, so I didn't know how it worked, and people tell you things and literally blow smoke up your backside and all this. So when that all started happening, thank God for people like yourself and other people that was mentoring me in terms of how to get through that and what it is like. But I suppose as I've evolved now, I've kept on walking, and if anything about me, I'm resilient and I keep walking. Like I've been through so many. People can look on the external, and that bio that you said at the beginning sounds amazing. But if anyone goes to my socials, I show when I was on construction doing 12, 14 hours a day. I keep it very real because this day and age, people are like manifestations, affirmations, all this, and you can get it here. And what I like about what you do and what I do is that you can get there, but it does take work.
A lot of work. And I know how hard you work. Like you're up at like 5 a.m. You were a fitness instructor, you're a photographer, you do the Imperfectly, but you're a father of two. Like people don't realize, yes, we sit there and we meditate and we chant and we do all that sort of stuff, but there is the action that is, and I believe that all that spiritual stuff at the end of the day is what motivates us to do that, to be able to give us the energy and the power. And ultimately, realistically, you're doing it all by yourself. There's not like you have somebody there going, all right, you can do it, mate, let's get up. You know, it's like a wish, you know. And I know that you struggled for so long because you had a family to take care of, but you also had this vision and something that you really believed in. And I think these challenges that came up ultimately are really, you know, it's funny. I was just going to talk about David Goggins for a second. I don't know if you know who he is. Like so he's somebody that like left a huge impression on me because he talked about it with his childhood. And I think this is referring to this. Sorry, I just hit my table. That, you know, he had such a horrible childhood, but he was like, it was a gift in the end of the day because it built me and it prepared me to be who I am today. And I think the same thing that happened with you, it's like, I remember all these things and the people that you were meeting that were using you and all this sort of stuff. And I was like, this is training. This is your training ground. Like you have to go through that, and it sucks and it's not fair and it's not right. But if you, and of course at the time, it's not easy to say, okay, you're just in training, you know, it's like, all right, great. I'm just going to go and work at a construction for 12 hours and get dust in my face and hear drills all day. Because I remember hearing the footage, like it's really loud. Like you guys were, it's dirty, it's loud, it's tiring work. But it was the training ground, and I see how far you've come and how much you've transformed. And it's like, I mean, you've blossomed, darling.
Thank you, darling. Thank you, darling. But yeah, if I can say anything to anyone, it is not an easy process. And there is that hard work. But I'd say when it comes to those energetic levels and frequencies and everything, what I've noticed is, and I was told this maybe by yourself, I can't even remember now, it was so long ago, but there was like, do you know how this blew up so fast? It was because you was in flow. You've got your feminine energy, which is the passion, giving, but you got the masculine energy of the work. So you was in flow. When it came to the second year and there was a lot more people that was coming on my journey, which essentially was that training ground, I was out of sync. I was trying to hit hard. Remember when I used to say to you, I'm doing everything, but nothing's happening, as in I'm making money from it and I've got family and this, that, and that. And I was out of sync because I forgot why I was doing it, because I was having these people come to me and I was like, I'm promoting everybody else by the look of it, and there's nothing reciprocated, and so it was out of sync.
Yeah.
But what I've now come to know, and I actually did a talk on it yesterday because I heard something about it and I thought it was just so profound in how to look at it. Those people that we associate or we call enemies, who have used as manipulators, those people that have basically, they try to discourage us, discredit us, all that, look at them as blessings.
Yeah.
Because as you said, it's a training ground. If you can get through that and become the person that you were always meant to be, you're going to go far. And I've learned along mine, if you lead by humility, you'll always hear me say, I don't know what I don't know. I started out with my podcast on my laptop and GarageBand, turning up to a celebrity. Like, remember when you turned up? And it was just like, so we're just going to press hit and record. And I'm like, now I look back and I go, like, you guys, you go on set, you get your hair and makeup done, you get the mic'd up, and you knew me, but a lot of the other ones are just like, believed in this guy who turned up and there was just, right, laptop, GarageBand. I just didn't care. It was more about, I think the vision was too big for me not to know about podcasts, to lead by humility and just go, it is what it is. I am who I am. You're buying into me, the person. You're not buying into the production, or you're not buying into perfection.
But I even remember when I met you, you just had this presence about you, and you just like, I remember we were doing a photo shoot for something. I can't remember for what. It was with an old friend of mine. But I just, even as a photographer, like, you just had this something about you that just oozed professionalism and oozed passion and a greater vision. And it did, like, you know, so, and you're knowledgeable and you're smart and like all this sort of stuff. But it's just like that energy that's behind, I think that's kind of a little bit like maybe what people call the it factor or something. It's like your intention ultimately was something bigger than yourself, even though it was coming from yourself, but it was bigger and it grew, and this is where you are today. And
but it's funny how you don't see that in yourself, isn't it? And this is what the campaign
is
about. Like, you could say all that to me, and in the past I'd have been like, okay, I just like talking to people. But that energetic behind it, you don't realize because of everything that's been placed on top of us. And now I look back and I can step into a place of authority. Like before, when I was doing all the podcasts and that, I'd turn up in my singlet all the time. And I learned a recent lesson about spirit. Well, I learned a recent lesson about, like, with the spiritual nature. It was like, somebody once told me when I was on a professional platform, oh, why don't you jump on and you put a shirt or a suit, just a little bit more professional? And I listened, right? And this is a big lesson for anybody. You can listen, but if your gut tells you something different or it's not in your spirit, wow, someone's just full automatic there outside, sorry. See, it was just showing that we're all accelerating there.
right.
we're evolving. But yeah, she told me this, and for like 3 weeks, nothing was happening. I weren't getting clients, things weren't happening with the campaign. And I spoke to a couple of friends and they was like, what's different? I said, well, I'm wearing a suit, I'm doing, that's it, Glenn, it's not you. And I look back now, and if that was part of my training, going, you know what? People aren't buying into a suit. People are buying into you and your heart. That's how it's grown. And that's your spirit. People are buying into your spirit behind it. And now, through that training ground to now, and I just had a meeting this morning with a label in the UK, and now I've jumped on here, and I can wear a suit or I can wear a shirt because I've evolved and stepped into it and now feel as comfortable in a shirt as I did in a singlet. What you're getting in a shirt is the same person you're getting in a singlet, and I'll never change. In fact, I've got my singlet underneath here.
I got both on today.
Exactly. And it's very much the same as you. This spiritual journey is, we can take people's advice, we can listen, but ultimately, what's meant for me in this life, my journey is meant for me, and what's meant for you is meant for you. So nothing can ever go past us. So we can listen to other people, and
yeah, it's also be careful who you listen to. You know, it's like, is it, you know, because sometimes even people in the spiritual community who, you know, I've had quite a journey in, and I've met a lot of, so, you know, maybe they didn't call themselves gurus, but I realized, you know, people abuse their power, you know, especially when it comes to spirituality. I had to experience that in order to get to a place where I am now. So, and luckily I was protecting myself, but, some of the experiences weren't so great. And I allowed somebody else's whatever, because I thought that they were more enlightened or more spiritual or whatever, because I didn't understand or didn't know the things that I know today. So I always put my own intuition and my own judgment behind, to then end up being used or ended up being taken advantage of or whatever, and a lot of the time somebody said this, that's right, this girl Mia Magic, who I absolutely love, who I follow, she was like, if you get advice from somebody, ask yourself one simple question: do you want to be living their life? And if you do, then listen to their advice. If you don't, do not listen to their advice. But obviously sometimes people can fool you, so be smart about it. But I like that, because it's like, do I really want to be living this person? Do I really respect them? Do I think that they're what they say, they're walking the walk and talking the talk? Because these people can all be spiritual and stuff, but like one of them was taking a lot of drugs. So I'm like, you can do drugs and be spiritual, but like abusing them, so I'm like, those two things don't really match,
It's the same thing as when people are struggling, they're seeking answers. When if it wasn't for people like yourself or those close circle that I could pour in and ask, I was taken advantage of in the spiritual world as well. So there's a networking group called Clubhouse, and there was a guy that came out of the blue and he poured into me, and I was like, wow, this guy's amazing. Like, how did he know this? And I get signs all the time when I ask for things. So a random feather will drop in front of me. That's my confirmation sign. Or it just sounds kind of cliche, because a lot of people say I get numbers all the time, but I get specific numbers that a car will go straight in front. And one day I was speaking to him, we was doing some stuff together online, and I said, oh, funny, but as I was talking, this car just pulled up straight in front of me outside the house with 222, and I says, I often get this. And then he turned around to me after a while and he says, look, I'm going to be obedient. I'm going to tell you this now. He said, but that basically means that when that number comes up, you've got to sow a seed of that into somebody that's helped you. And I was like, okay. And I've heard this before. So if you go to us, there's a lot of people talking about sowing seeds. And I was like, oh, okay.
Sounds like some sort of energetic contract that doesn't sound very healthy or good.
Yeah. Well, he said this to us, and I was like, well, you know what? If it comes to source, God, they know where my bank accounts are. I've got 2 kids. I've got this. I'm sure they're not going to want me to take off my kids to give to somebody else. So I was naive at the time. So I think we got to go through it. And I poured $22 into him. And then the following week, it was funny because this car just went random, stopped in front of me. And he said his initials down to his 3 names, or what I took it as, because I think I was seeking things with 777. And I was joking with him, but I think there was something in my gut, just seeing what he'd say. Because there was something off at that time. And your spirit will tell you if it's off. And I actually said to him, I was like, oh, funnily enough, I was like, it was so funny that like this car just like literally in front of me stopped, and it had consecutive your name, all 3, and then 777. And again, we went through the whole session. At the end, he said, look, he was like, and I'm like, what's up? He was like, oh, I'm just going to be obedient. I've got to say it to you because like, I wasn't going to say anything, but like, it's just being led. And if I don't say it, and I was like, what? And my gut just flared up. And he was like, look, I thank you for pouring $22 in, but basically what it was showing you was to sow a seed of 222 in.
Yeah, of course.
And I was like, oh, okay. And then he said, so what you're being shown now is obviously 777. And for me, then my gut just went boom. And you know, the Yorkshire in me, I was like, how dare you?
Yeah.
I was like, so you're like literally saying the universal God has not only doubled it, but trebled it. And I couldn't afford to give 222. So if I don't give that to you, somebody who's apparently prolific in whatever industry they're in, I was like, how dare you use universe, God, source name to manipulate people?
Well, that's what a lot of these people do. That's exactly what they do, because spirituality is really powerful. People know this. I mean, you know, not to diss any religions or anything, but, you know, the church, I mean, especially being here in America, like, you know, Christianity in Italy and Christianity here is very different. You know what I mean? And I'm hearing about like how extreme it is over here and how people just like the Bible bashers and all that sort of stuff, like throwing it in your face, but they throw it with guilt and like, you're going to go to hell. And I'm like, that doesn't sound very holy and Jesus-like and God-like to me. You know what I mean? And even though Italy is supposed to be the birth, but I don't know if it's the birth of it, but it's like one of the most Christian, like they don't care. They're like, go to church if you want to go to church, and go to church if you don't want to go to church. God's going to take care of you. If you believe in that, you're going to go to hell, because apparently if he's so great and almighty and powerful and strong, who the hell are you to go around and do his work for him? You know, so it's just been, I mean, I hate to, sorry for all the Christians out there if you get offended, but it's like, it is, this power has been abused time and time again, because it is one of, in my opinion, one of the most powerful powers, you know, and it's used through guilt, it's used through shame, and it's used through all this sort of stuff. And I mean, I even fell for it once. I was down somewhere here at the Grove, and I think I was having like, this is like years ago, and I was having a really bad day. And this guy comes up and he's like, I just had to say that I have a message for you from your angels. And like, he gave me this whole spiel, and he made it look like he was doing me a favor. You know what I mean? And then at the end of, he was like, you know, just so you know, I you know, you don't have to give me anything or whatever. But then I was like, I felt bad. So I gave him like $10 or $20 or whatever. And then I walked away going, this guy totally ripped me off, man. He just made me hear what I wanted to hear. And then I just gave him $20. We're like, whatever. Anyway, I don't want to take too much time because we've been here for a little while, but I wanted to ask you one more thing. So where are you going with Imperfectly Perfect campaign now? So where is it growing? What's your vision for it? What's going on?
Well, this is the thing with spirituality as well. What we think is our plan for something, you will totally get a different pivot or something, and you're like, but I thought it was going this way, and then something else happens. So today, we're coming up to 4 years. Can you believe you were there from the start? And it's now late 2018 to 22. I'm like, bloody hell. Yeah. So I've just launched a community platform so people can go on there, and it's a collective. Nobody knows anyone's profession. I don't want people leading by a profession. You've got to unmask yourself. There's resources, programs, virtual hangs where you get to meet some of these people, which we need to talk about for you to come on and do a Q&A as well.
I think you've blown up way too big for me to show up now.
No, mate, but you know me. We've impacted over 8 million people with the reach. The podcast keeps on growing. And I will just say the manifestation thing again. You mentioned Dr. Joe Dispenza. Yeah, so I knew who he was, but my wife makes me laugh because when she'll say, oh, who have you got coming up? And I'll mention a name. She'll be like, I don't know them. Right. And I'm like, okay. And then I said, oh, I've got Dr. Joe Dispenza. And she turned around. She was like, how did you get him on? And I was like, I emailed, and within a week, I got confirmation he was coming on. She was like, nah, that can't be it. And the more and more, like, I get interviewed and stuff, they're like, Dr. Joe Dispenza gets paid tens of thousands to go and speak at places. His waiting list for his things are like 9,000 people. Yeah. He's got queue after queue, and you got him on your podcast in a week. How? And I'm like, source, God, or that energetic level. And
well, I'm pretty sure he also like probably knows what you're doing and your mission. Once again, talking about that energy and that thing that you're putting out there, you know, if you're in alignment, people will know, and especially people like him who are pretty in tune, and they're going to be like, this guy looks like he knows what he's doing.
Yeah, well, that's with him. It came on a week, and then essentially my idea was, my vision, or what I thought was, this platform to go as big as we can. I always say, and you know, I want to be known like my legacy as Robin Hood. I take from the organizations that can afford and actually help people that can't.
Yeah.
And again, someone poured into me the other day, and that was the first thing that they said for me to believe. It was like, you need a bit of encouragement. I just want to say Robin Hood. And I'm like, now I've said it online, but nobody else other than my closest friends knew that. So I was like, oh, you've got my attention. How would you know that? And he started pouring into me and saying, because I started a strategic partnership with somebody else. And then he said, look, I see this Formula One car with all these battered cars following you. I don't know what that means, but it might make sense to you. And he poured into me. 2 days later, this person who was like 100% into what I was doing, and I thought we was going this way, suddenly pulled out. And I was like, I could have gone into my ego, but I thought, you know what, I've come this far and I've done it myself with God, I said, and keep walking. And I got in touch with this guy and I said, thank you for pouring into me the other day. And he joined me and he said, oh my God, now I know what the cars are. They're the imperfect people and they're following you. And then I said, yeah, but I was doing this and I thought I was going this way with this woman and this and this. He said, Glenn, I don't know much about cars, but I wasn't shown a bus. I was shown a Formula One car, and what a Formula One car has is one seat. You're leading this. It's what's being placed on your heart. So now I'm just like, okay, I'm leading something. And I think sometimes when we know the vision and our purpose, I know it's to be of service and help people, but that pure clarity, now I just go, you know what? Some days I don't see a way, but I know that you can make a way. So just keep on.
I'm excited to see what's going to come for you. I mean, honestly, just seeing the growth and everything and the people that you've been attracting. Okay, so I'm just, for anybody, please follow, like, share about the Imperfectly Perfect campaign. I will put links in the description below so you guys can follow him, shout out, whatever, because he's incredible. And if you know anybody who's struggling with mental health, please, please, please support the campaign. It's changing lives and saving lives. You know, it's what you're doing, my friend. You're saving lives.
Thank you. And likewise, thank you for having me on. You are doing incredible stuff. I know we speak often, but yeah, you're in LA now, and I'm still in Sydney.
I know. Well, hurry up and get here. I told you, you got a place to stay. So you know,
we'll manifest it. It's coming. It's already done. We already know. I
know. Well, thank you so much for your time, for your presence, for everything. I'll talk to you probably again soon. And that's that.
Talk to you soon, mate.